Welcome back to the video lecture series on Python programming. This is Amit Kumar Das and I am a senior research scientist in the data science lab, Eki Chaudhary School of IT, University of Calcutta. So we are actually going through the different data types of Python, and now we're going to cover another important data type of Python, which is called tuples, right? So tuples in a it is very similar to the list data type, right? Reason is it's also a ordered sequence of objects, and as a part of the sequence it can actually have objects of different types. So different data types can be accommodated in the order sequence, right? But where is the difference then? The only difference lies in the fact, as we have already discussed, that it is immutable. That means what? Once the tuple is being created, you cannot change the value of any element. You cannot delete the value of any element. So once created, the tuple has the content fixed, right? Nothing can be changed. Now, structurally, what is the difference? In place, we have seen in list that the list is a ordered set of objects where it starts with a square bracket and ends with a square bracket. The difference in case of tuple is, the only difference is it starts and ends with a first bracket or a parenthesis, right? So this is the only difference from a structural perspective. And second thing is, as we have already talked about, it is read only. That means once created, the values cannot be altered or deleted, right? Other than that, if you look at any of the basic operations which are applicable for a list, they are equally applicable for a tuple also. That means the way the elements in the list are being accessed with the indices, the same way it can be accessed in case of a tuple. The way it can be, you can find out the length of a list, the same way you can find out the length of a tuple. So all those things are kind of same. So let's look at a few of them. But before that, a very curious question. Then why do we need to have tuples since we have list already? Now just think about this kind of a variable, right? Where you can, even define a list variable here also. You can just have a square bracket and define a list. But the challenge is, in that case, either by accidentally or say unknowingly, you might change the value of any one of the elements in this particular variable, or you might also do a kind of a sorting or a rearranging of the elements of the data type. So maybe you may decide that you will start with the alphabet, starting alphabets, you will get the things sorted out. So April will come first, right? After April, what will come? After April will come, say, December. Then it will be, after April it will be August, then December, then February. So that way the total ordering may get completely changed. And if the ordering gets changed, obviously the variable months doesn't make any sense. So the whole utility of this variable will get completely lost. So that's why in order to prevent such a accidental or unknowingly any manipulation being done on the values of the elements of a particular variable, which should be preserved, the values should be preserved as well as the ordering should be preserved. So that case we use a tuple instead of a list, right? So I hope you understand why list is an important data type in Python. Now let's look at a few common things how to access. So I will just continue using the same example as I used for the list. I just changed the square bracket to the round bracket. That's it. Otherwise, everything is the same, and the variable name I've just appended. Not appended. I have prefixed with a TPL instead of a LST. Right. So that way I have defined two tuples, one a larger tuple and another one a smaller tuple, right? So I can just print the tuple as is. That is one thing I can do. If I want to access the first element in the tuple, again, the first element means index value is equal to 0. So I can just access with the index value. If I want to, access a range of elements, how can I do that? Again, specify the range by the start and the end index, right? So I give a 1 and a 3. So it will take the elements from the first in the second index 1 is the second index, so it will take start from here, so go to the index 2, and just before 3 it has to stop, so it will just pick up the index 1 and 2. So that's how it has returned 1 and 2, right? Again, just take care of, just take a notice of one thing. When we are returning this data by doing basic operations on the tuple, the result is also a tuple. Like in list, the result was also a list. Here, the result is also a tuple. Trivial, but just wanted to mention this. Same way, starting from a particular index, if I want to get the range of values for the succeeding elements, we can do the same thing. I can repeat a tuple multiple times using the star operator. I can append to tuples just by using the plus operator. So everything remains the same way as in case of a list. Where it changes, the immutability thing, right? So what I'm trying to do here in this part of the code, I'm trying to forcefully update the value of the first element. So index 0 means first element of the tuple. And when I'm trying to do that, it's immediately giving me syntax error. Can't assign to function call. Simple. It says that I cannot do a value assignment because it's a tuple. I cannot do a value assignment, right? So this is where it changes from the list. Now next, when I go to the, if I want to combine, this is a very utility function that Python has, zip function. It is applicable both for list as well as for tuples. So if I want to do a element-wise concatenation of the list or tuples, or one tuple and another list, if I want to do that, how can I do that? I can simply use these zip functions, and as the parameter I just give the list and the tuple. If I just want to append a list and the tuple, right? So what it does is, this is a list, so 1, and this is a tuple corresponding A, 2 corresponding B, 3 and corresponding is C, right? So it combines the corresponding elements and forms a tuple, right? And with the tuples of the elements, if I typecast it as a list, it will return a list. If I typecast it as a tuple, it will return a tuple. Like here, I have combined two lists, right? And when I have combined that using the zip function, the result is being typecasted to a tuple. So result is typecasted to a tuple. Again, I can just combine two lists and typecast it as a list. So zip function can be used to order-wise combine two lists or two tuples, or one list and another tuple, right? And when they combine them, the elements become tuples, and the whole return thing, the data, the whole object which is being returned, it can be typecasted either as a tuple or as a list, right? So using the tuple or the list function. So this is how we can do it. Now, one small thing I just want to tell before I pause on the tuples discussion. If you just look at it, we talked about three data types, right? We talked about the strings, we talked about the strings, we talked about the lists, we talked about the tuples. All three of them belong to a generic Python object called sequences, because ultimately all these three are ordered sequences, either ordered sequences of objects, or in case of string, these are ordered sequences of characters, right? So these are all ordered sequences. That's why you will see I mean, they are extremely similar to each other. The way they are accessed, the elements are being accessed by the numbered index, the way they are manipulated, all these things are kind of very similar, right? Since all of them are derived from the one generic class, Python class sequences, right? So with that, I will pause on the discussion on tuples. When I come back, I will talk about the other very important data type, which is dictionary data type. So stay tuned. Thank you very much.